of you have clients of yours who have pretty severe gut health and you've struggled, you've always wondered, like, how do I get them to the next level? Like, that's really what we're going to be covering today. And Dan, I don't know if you remember in Go Wellness, like the studies that we showed, especially the mice model, where you take obese mice and you exchange the poop of the obese mice with the lean mice,
Mhm.
and the lean mice become fat and the skinny mice become or excuse me, the lean mice become fat and the fat
Yeah.
mice become skinny when you just through a fecal matter transplant. And we've shared some of the human clinical trials. For those of you who've ever ran your gut test and you find out someone's got C. difficile, you're like, okay, this goes way beyond what we can do in natural therapies, and it can be life-threatening. And so it's like, okay, we just sent him to a GI specialist, and there's like one place in Utah that does it. And when I talked to Jason, I was thrilled. I was like, okay, finally we have something that we can offer the Go Wellness community for your clinical application of fecal matter transplant in a way that's safe and effective. Dan, what's your thoughts once you learned about what Jason and Shane are doing?
Yeah, no, I think I started initially to have some conversation with Jason. Just we still need to follow up, but we get gut's been one of our main areas of treatment at Peak, and we'll find that the hardest cases are the ones that they have the lowest diversity in their gut. They'll be missing, like, we find if someone is missing over 12 out of like 24 of those typical commensal species, like probiotics alone and doing these things like short chain fatty acids to really build up that gut and getting some immunoglobulins in there just doesn't quite do it. We've had a couple clients that they resorted to creating like a mixture and doing like an infusion, a rectal, like an enema of their own probiotic mix. And it's like they really need something with some better diversity, like more diversity. And that's part of the big problems with probiotics is we have so many facultative and anaerobic species that we can't get those in a probiotic. And so the only way to get it is try to feed them and seed the gut so they'll grow. Or now with Jason, this opportunity to actually put all these species that you can't find in a probiotic, super exciting.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, Jason, Shana, maybe you guys could give us some kind of the backstory, how you got into this. Jason's a renowned naturopathic physician, ran a busy practice, and now he's just swimming in poop these days, and rightfully so because he saw some such dramatic improvements. But yeah, let's hear some of the backstory from you two.
Sure. Yeah, and Shana's got a presentation deck to introduce the topic in a little more detail. But about myself, yeah, I first started out treating patients just regular GI issues, IBS, SIBO, IBD. That was sort of my area. Of course, anytime anybody has any one of those types of conditions, it manifests in a whole bunch of other symptoms, whether it's autoimmune or brain fog and so on. And I did that for several years. And then I had a patient actually who reached out to me. Well, a prospective patient reached out, was interested in working with me. But she was one of those, you guys are probably familiar with this, literally tried everything, including, the big guns of going to Mayo and Cleveland and all the integrative, all the functional stuff. And her husband actually sold everything they owned, bought an organic plot of land, built a totally environmentally safe house, grew their own organic food. And still, after years of all of this, she was really ill. And I just said to her, look, I don't think there's anything I can do to help you. But what I think you should do is FMT because her medical history included just tons of antibiotics. And I didn't know anything about it other than I just, it was a short lecture when I was in naturopathic school. And so she was like, oh my gosh, I'd love to, but there's no way that I can get this. This doesn't exist here in North America. And the only places I could find it would be to go overseas. And given her health, it just wasn't a possibility. And so that started the journey of making FMT more accessible. And so in early 2018, we started treating patients, started out in Mexico, over time expanded to a clinic in Panama, Hungary, Australia, and we had patients traveling from all over the world getting treatment. And then in 2023, we shifted to focusing mostly on just exclusive direct to doctors, clinics, hospitals, And so that's really in line with our goal of expanding access. We realized quickly the hard part's not treating. The hard part's actually the manufacturing, keeping up the licensing, GMP requirements, donor screening, all of those pieces. And so where we're at now is just exclusively providing the product to others. But a lot of what we do is education, really sharing awareness of what this is, how it works, the nuances of it, the importance of what we do, and how doctors and clinics and whatnot can actually amplify the other things that they're doing.
And so I think that's something that we're seeing different in an entire shift in the medical field. This idea of integrative and functional medicine is new because we're starting to understand that the body is a whole network and we can't look at it as different systems. And research is slowly changing in that way. And part of it is it's harder to look at a system when you're trying to modulate something small to look at its impact, but you don't really get an answer to the whole question by only looking at that in isolation.
Man, I love that because, yeah, it's the questions we ask that are far more important than the answers we have.
So everyone has kind of heard of the gut-brain axis, but there's a gut-liver axis, there's a gut-muscle axis, there's a gut-bone axis, there's a gut-lung and heart axis. And so what we're learning is that gut is a driving feature in multiple areas of the body and ties back to multiple chronic conditions. And so in some cases, changing your diet and exercise and being aware of your sleep can help restore the gut. But in a chronic sense, and if you've had a chronic condition for a long period of time, bringing the gut back to a balanced, diverse system is difficult, if not impossible, depending on how far things have gone. And so that's where fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT, comes in. And so the idea here is that FMT helps to re-educate a recipient's gut so that it is diverse, it has a large population, and becomes more like a donor. And so the donors are healthy, have a wide diversity and composition of the gut. They live a really healthy life. And this allows kind of to shift that recipient towards a donor and give them healthy microbiome, which engrafts and becomes stable. And so it becomes their new microbiome. And then over time, you see all the shifts in the ability of the body to kind of function more properly. And then we see this in both GI changes as well as more behavioral and neurological changes as well. One of the big concerns people have is this safe? And I think that totally makes sense. It's like a little bit concerning when you think of, taking from a donor, taking their stool, and it's extremely purified. One of our products is a powder that you can drink mixed in water. So it's extremely purified. It's so far away from the starting product of stool, but it's understanding that there are a lot of safety concerns, and that's what we do really well, is ensuring that we cover those. So overall in the research and our experience clinically, most of the adverse effects associated with FMT are transient symptoms. So they're mild, they don't last very long, and they resolve on their own without intervention. And they're mostly GI-based discomfort. So abdominal discomfort, diarrhea, bloating, things like that, which is part of the process of kind of shifting the gut as well. And when we look at how do we ensure safety, the two cornerstones of this are donor screening. So ensuring that the donors are highly screened to minimize the possibility of transferring both anything infectious, but also contagious. And so you spoke to this at the beginning, which was like the mouse studies of being able, taking from an obese mouse and giving it to a lean mouse, and that lean mouse becomes obese. And so part of our donor screening process is anything we know from the research that shows that there's some underpinning of the gut microbiome. We screen that out in our donors, both them and their immediate family. Now, we don't know if all of these traits would transfer through this, but our goal is to be more stringent than less. And so we cover things not just metabolic conditions, but as well as cancers, GI issues, neurological conditions, sleep issues. All of those we know have some tie back to the gut. So we screen that out in our donors. And then the other side is manufacturing. And so we manufacture the same as any other pharmaceutical. And I think that should be the standard. This is considered a drug. So the standards should be the same. So we follow good manufacturing practices, which is what all pharmaceuticals have to. We have a third-party oversight with our license with Health Canada. And so this helps ensure that the production and quality of the product is consistent and meets all the same standards as any other pharmaceutical that you would expect.
I used to say my kids had not had any vaccines. They ate like organic their whole life, and yeah, they would be ideal donors. They exercise, they're pretty fit. One of my boys is like ultra fit, so yeah, these are great.
We got to figure out, how to accept donors from around the globe.
We also look at doing a bowel cleanse, and this is, again, all of the pre-treatment. The idea here is reducing how much competition or how difficult it is for the new microbiome or microbiota to engraft. So by doing a bowel cleanse, you're kind of cleaning out or washing out the system. And then we suggest fasting if possible, and this is going to be dependent on the population you're treating and the patients, but or even just a water fast or a light diet on the day before and the day of FMT, again, to help reduce any issues that may cause with engraftment. Did you want to add anything there, Jason?
Yeah, my take on probiotics is that there's an actual potential that we can develop dysbiosis over time if we're taking probiotics. And so this is not backed by, double-blinded clinical trials and all these things, but I'm, ambivalent at best about the benefits of probiotics. And I think at some point they could actually create an imbalance. And our goal is to get that balance. And a lot of these these probiotics just have tons of very limited amount of strains. And yeah, I think there's a potential for a problem there when patients are using them long term. And so our goal at minimum is to not do them during the treatment. And after the treatment, the focus should be more on the diet and fermented foods and other prebiotics that could be beneficial to supporting that healthy microbiome. So it's a fun one. I went to a hot pot restaurant yesterday and I was excited because they literally had like a wall of different foods and I could just take a little bit of everything. And I probably had like, 30 different types of foods in one bowl and it was really cool. But I digress.
Nice.
And a fun fact about diet is diet can actually start shifting your gut microbiome in as little as 24 to 48 hours.
That's awesome. We already got made some contact with Jason and got the link to get a registration. We definitely have some clients we need to get started on it just from a lack of biodiversity in their gut bacteria. So I'm excited about that because we've struggled to get some of these people consistently well. So
and this, like, I was surprised by the pricing on this. Like it's like very high ticket.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking at like stem cell pricing essentially, but it is, if you look at what's available, like the other options is through big pharma and they're like, tens of thousands of dollars for single treatments. It's crazy what big charging for FMT. So yeah, very much more reasonable when you compare it to that. But awesome. Well, great to have you on, man. Thanks for joining us. And thanks, Go Wellness. You guys are awesome. We'll see you next time. And have an amazing, amazing month. See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.